So looking at that U-try, the answer to that is -4, a slope of -4. So make sure you're double checking your work. If you found an error in your work, go back, see if you can correct it and figure out where the problem was. I think the first time I did it wrong too. So sometimes it's good to double check your math. Okay, moving on, we are going to talk about some specific types of slope. And the first type of slope that we're going to talk about is when our slope is positive. So anytime our slope is positive, it's going from the bottom left, going up to the top right. So it's always going to start in the lower left and work its way up to the upper right corner. So the entire time our function values are increasing over the entire domain of our graph. So some examples of positive slopes that you can see that you might see is a slope of 3 or a slope of 1/2. Fractions can be positive and -2. So just the fraction of 1/2 is a positive slope. You could have a slope of 8/3, or perhaps you could have a slope of just 11. You could have a very extreme slope of 11. Now our negative slopes are going to go from the upper left corner and work their way down to the lower right corner. So it slopes down from left to right, and the function values are decreasing over the entire domain of our function. And examples of that could be a slope of -1 or a slope of -3/4 or just a slope of -12. So if there's a negative symbol in front of it, it's going to have a negative slope. We have two other special types of slope. The first one is a slope of 0. And a slope of 0 is an extra special type. When we have a slope of 0, that means we have a horizontal line. It's very specific, a horizontal line. And there's a good way to remember that your horizontal lines have a slope of 0. We will see more of this as we get further into algebra. But there's something called HOI, and it's just kind of a phrase to help you remember information about horizontal lines. So the H stands for horizontal, and the O actually stands for 0, a slope of 0, and that is the number 0. And this can also occur when there's a 0 on top and a number on the bottom. So it could just be the number 0 or 0 over a number. The Y we will use more when we get into writing equations, but it stands for Y equals a number, which is the equation of that line. So again, we're going to get more into equations here and graphing shortly. So if you have a slope of 0, it has to be a horizontal line. It could be a horizontal line located in the positive y's and the negative y's. It could be down here going this way. That would still be a horizontal line, and it would still have a slope of 0. These functions are constant over the domain, so the y value is always going to be the same number. Here we have an example. It says find the slope of a line that passes through -3, -1, and 5, -1. So again, we are going to use our slope formula. I'm going to number these x1, y1, x2, y2. And using our slope formula, y2, which is -1 minus -1 over 5 minus a -3. So we've got some subtraction and negative signs. So we need to turn some of these into addition. So -1 plus 1 over 5 plus 3. -1 over 1 -1 plus 1 turns into 0. And a 5 plus 3 is 8. So 0 on top gives me just a slope of 0. So this is going to be a horizontal line, and our slope is 0. Our last type of slope that we will see is called the undefined slope. And the undefined slope happens when we have a vertical line. And so we just talked about horizontal lines. These are about vertical lines. Vertical lines go up and down. So you could have one that goes here or one over here. And so those are vertical lines. And just like we had HOI for horizontal lines, we have something called VUX for vertical lines. So the V stands for vertical lines, or vertical line. The U stands for the U in undefined slope. So the slope of a vertical line is undefined. It's not actually a number. It's a word. It's undefined. And this is going to occur when you are dividing with 0 on the bottom. So when 0 is on the bottom is when we have an undefined slope. And our equation, which again, we will get more into this as we progress, is going to be x equals a number. Okay. We have a point here at 5, -1, and 5, -3. I'm going to make our x1, y1, x2, y2, and plug this into our formula. So we have -3 minus our y1, which is -1, over 5 minus 5. -3 minus a -1 turns into -3 plus 1 over 5 minus 5. -3 plus 1 is -2, and 5 minus 5 is 0. We cannot divide by 0. If you try to do this in your calculator, you will get an error message. That is a big red flag. We cannot divide by 0. And so our slope is what we call undefined. Undefined.